and welcome again. And so I think I'll start off by talking, and then we can open it up in a few minutes. As many of you know, I'm a Taiji instructor as well. And I bring mindfulness to my Tai Chi practice. It makes sense to do that, to bring awareness of the body, of course, to the intricate movements. And I was playing around with the idea of bringing Tai Chi to mindfulness practice. How would that work? And what I want to say is that, there's Tai Chi that we think of as a martial art or a mind-body art, characterized by gentle flowing movements. But there's also a larger frame of what we mean by Tai Chi or Taiji. And that is a whole philosophical system that we don't have time to get into, that is deeply embedded in Chinese culture. And just as a shorthanded way of addressing that, it refers to the harmonious union of the great opposites. We call that yin and yang in Chinese philosophy, but that could relate to body and mind, that could relate to earth and sky, left and right, upper and lower, etc. So my focus today in the context of mindfulness, and I'd like you to think about these words in terms of how this relates to your mindfulness practice, seated and in everyday life, and also in working with what's happening inside your body and what's happening outside in the web of your relationships in terms of harmony. So here's a few basic points from Tai Chi teachings in no particular order that can apply to meditation and everyday life. One is when we're standing or sitting for that matter, we keep our head upright. And I've mentioned this before, as if there's a string attached to the crown point of the head. So this prevents us from collapsing. And this, of course, is the neurological posture of attention. We want to embody attention in our walking, our sitting, and our lying down meditation. We want to be present. So this is the posture of attention. Something that's often not addressed in Tai Chi practice or meditation for that matter is vision. Sometimes we meditate with eyes open. And what the research is now showing is that what we call spacious vision deactivates the stress response. Think about it. If we were in a dangerous situation, we would not be, quote, spacing out. Our vision would be very, very focused on one point, the object of perceived danger. And so when we consciously open up our vision, the stress response is deactivated. The parasympathetic nervous system, the part of our nervous system that's responsible for resting and digesting, can be accessed. And so for those of us engaging in open-eyed meditation, we can think about opening the field of vision. And also in everyday life, check into how are you holding your eyes? This is part of mindfulness of the body, the eyes. Another point in the practice of Tai Chi or Tai Chi Chuan, which means grand ultimate fist, but that's another story. We engage in slow, deep breathing. Now, in normal meditation practice, unless it's specifically being used for relaxation, we're not looking to control, regulate the breath. However, of course, we can bring mindfulness to induce a state of relaxation through the body, sort of like what we just encountered a few moments ago. And in that context, of course, we can regulate the breath. What the research is showing is that about 6 breaths per minute is optimal. Actually, some research says 5.5 breaths per minute, which is pretty difficult to monitor and regulate. But for my own practice, and it depends on your breath capacity, breathing in for 5 seconds and breathing out for 5 seconds is very optimal for me. Now, it's different for everyone because we all have a different lung capacity. The general point there is that when we breathe consciously, slowly, and deeply, we can activate, again, the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, I find what often happens without trying, that when I'm focused in meditation and go a little bit deeper into meditation through the body, that the breath naturally regulates. You don't have to control it. Get out of the way of controlling it. And the breath will probably slow down of its own accord. The other point, this gets into the psychological now. In Tai Chi practice, in the movement practice of Tai Chi, there's a classic teaching that says, distinguish the upper from the lower. And what that means is distinguish the upper body from the waist up from the lower body, the waist down. Now, in meditation practice, for me, what that can mean, and I'll share that with you, is from the waist up, a sense of soft, open spaciousness, and even lightness through the body. And from the waist down, especially through the legs and hips, heaviness, groundedness. So in Taiji parlance, we might call that the complementarity of yin and yang. Yang is rising and spacious like the sky, and yin is grounded and firm like the earth. It can get really complicated. I'll stop with that one. In terms of the psychological dimensions, I was playing with this idea of, distinguishing the upper from the lower. How can we apply that to our own psychology and be mindful of those distinctions in a way that makes a difference? Well, what I came up with was that, upper or higher aspects of our awareness might include awareness of values. What is it you value? And how do those values express themselves through your thoughts, speech, and actions? For example, mindful accountability. What are your intentions and aspirations? Many people, self-included, have dreams, and dreams are fine. And yet at the same time, we might think within this framework, the dream is the sky. Without the earth grounding the dream will stay in the dream world without being born, so to speak, upon the earth. So dreams, of course, help us to create and to envision, and yet the grounding of the earth, specifically, non-esoterically, through our actions, through our way of relating to self and others, that kind of grounding and our connection to our body, mind, and heart, that kind of grounding supports us in evolving our dreams, transforming our dreams into realities, some of the time. So the lower aspects of our dimension can also refer to, there may be a few psychoanalytic people out there, can also refer to instinctual energies of sexuality and aggression. How do we wield those energies? It's very important to be aware of that, obviously. And also can refer to what the psychoanalysts or the Jungians call the shadow aspects of personality. That is the lower aspects, the aspects about ourselves that we deny, that we only tend to see in other people, that we judge in other people, or we encounter in our dreams, as when we discover that we are rageful in our dream to the point where we are afraid because that's not me, but it's an instinctual energy. No, it's not you. but it's an instinctual energy by virtue of you being a human being. And we can bring mindfulness to that so that we can integrate that into our lives, so that that kind of energy is not subverted in a way that controls us or harms others for that matter. There's another aspect of what I'm going to call the lower psychological dimension that I think is a very healthy aspect. And I would consider that a healthy sense of vitality, energy, strength, and aliveness. I used to use the word power, but that word power has been so sullied in over the last 50 years, really, that I'm not using that word so much, but a sense of aliveness, really. The great mythologist, for example, Joseph Campbell, I love this quote. He says that, people often say that we're searching for meaning in life. And he says, no, we're actually searching for a sense of aliveness. We're searching for that connection to life streaming through us. I'm paraphrasing now. And think about it. In your mindfulness practice, in your life, when you feel connected to life, and it can be, for example, in Tai Chi practice, as simple as being connected to your breath, because that is life force. When we're connected in that way, we feel alive. So the connection to life is life. And another classical teaching is soft overcomes hard. Soft overcomes hard. And in the martial art of Tai Chi, this has to do with how do I encounter somebody pushing against me? Well, we say, push against push creates more tension. And what we do is we create softness so that we guide that hard energy away from us. And so what does that have to do with my life? Well, life, if we're not very aware and mindful, the hardness of life, the challenges of life, for example, can result in not just psychological, but I would say psychophysiological constriction around the chest, around the belly, around the head. These are favorite places that I've encountered in my own life during tense times, maybe 2 days ago. And when we're aware of that, we can work with that, not as a quick fix, but first step, bringing awareness to it. And the question for me would become, how can I soften to it? Because if I fight it, if I judge it, that tension, more tension accumulates. So how can I harmonize with the tension? Rather than give more details, I want to just say one other point about relaxation, which is related, of course, to tension. And one way to know relaxation is to go to the place of tension and then release the tension in some form or fashion. In Taiji, there's a concept, it's transcribed as S-O-N-G, like song. It's pronounced in Chinese, more or less, song. And it essentially means loose and stretched and open, but not too loose, like a limp noodle. So there's a sense of being loose and relaxed, just like in meditation, but also being aligned, being aware enough to stay in alignment with your relaxation. And we sometimes say there are 3 levels of relaxation. Stick with me here. The first level of relaxation is what we think of as muscular relaxation, which is fairly easy for folks to be with. You sit back on your sofa, maybe not meditating, and there's a sense of relaxation that comes over your musculature. Second level of relaxation involves more of a concentrated awareness and a mind-body connection that creates deep relaxation into the musculature and even into the internal organs of the body. We might most easily relate to the heart with this, because I think, from what we know about biofeedback, for example, and breathing patterns, we can relax our hearts. But the deepest relaxation, according to the Chinese system, is deep relaxation into the bone marrow. Think about that, into the bone marrow. Now, whether or not you believe that's possible, I find that we could even see that as a metaphor or an ancient reflection upon the immune system enhancing property of deep relaxation, because we know when we're able to release stress and relax deeply, our immune system works optimally. And so that might be a reference to how we can support our health, not just well-being, but our physical health, by deeper relaxation. That kind of framework, I actually don't take literally, but I take that as a great reminder that there's always a little bit more to let go of, whether that be emotionally or physically. I recall years ago when I was driving my automobile from California, San Diego, to Asheville in our big transition about 12 or 13 years ago. It was the first time in my adult life I was without a job. I felt very free. And I thought I was a pretty relaxed guy, practiced my Tai Chi daily, etc. And I encountered what I experienced, a level of depth of relaxation that I had not known in many years. And it told me I had habituated through my body. And you probably know I like that concept of habituation, because it reminds us we can become very familiar with a certain level of tension, and yet there's so much more to explore.